I had the opportunity to play the first closed beta of the Crew Motorfest from a few months ago, but that one was under NDA, so I can't talk about it. But there's a new closed beta more widely available now, and this one I can talk about. So I wanted to talk about my first impressions from my time with the game on the PS5 and PC, and go over how I feel about it overall. But first, let's talk performance. The build we're playing on the closed beta is obviously an in-development build, so it should have some performance issues, but the difference in performance between the PS5 and PC version is so drastic that it kinda makes me wonder if there is something wrong with the PC build at the moment. The PS5 version has two modes, a resolution mode that targets 4K but runs at just 30 FPS, and a performance mode with a lower resolution running at 60 FPS. It's by no means locked at 60 FPS, and you're going to see a ton of frame drops depending on where you are on the map, but considering this isn't a final build, it's pretty solid overall. On the PC side, things are much different. From the moment you start the first race, the performance stinks really bad, like really bad. I'm running the game on a PC with a 13900K, a 4090, 128GB of DDR5 memory, and a 7000MB per second SSD. That's a pretty beefy PC, and still the game barely reaches 20 FPS. It runs pretty bad regardless of settings. I don't know how many people with this exact configuration are running this game, so I have no idea how it's been for them, but if that's an indicator of performance optimization for the PC version when it launches, then it's something to keep in mind when choosing on which platform you should get the game. So for this reason, I'm sticking with the PS5 version for this video, which is where I spent most of my time with this game. The closed beta has a few playlists and activities that you unlock as you progress. Progression in this game, at least from what I was able to see in the beta, can be summed up as complete an event here, unlock an event there. It's event to event as most open world racing games are, so if you're not a fan of that style of progression, the Crew Motorfest won't do much to change your mind here. In between events, the game will occasionally give you challenges to complete. Some of them ask you to drive above a certain speed on a certain car, while others are more specific. And I feel these challenges are the glue that holds everything together and make going from event to event a little bit more engaging. There's also the option to fast travel, which you unlock later, but by doing so, you'll be missing out on all this extra stuff that the game puts in front of you. In terms of graphics, it isn't the jump you would expect from a game releasing in 2023, which isn't surprising because the game is also launching on the PS4 and Xbox One, so whatever you see here is dictated by what those consoles are able to pull off. That's not to say it looks bad, it is an improvement over the previous game for sure, but it can be a bit inconsistent sometimes. Let's take lighting for example. Depending on the time of day, what you see on the screen can range from absolutely gorgeous to just bland, but even in the most bland situations, it still looks like an upgrade over the Crew 2. Audio quality also seems to be an improvement overall. There's a lot more grunt to the car sounds and the environments feel a bit more alive. I'm not the type of person to go out and check if the in-game sounds match real life, but to my untrained ears, the cars sound very good. I feel physics is the thing that makes or breaks a racing game. It's the single most important aspect of any game where you drive cars. The Crew never had especially good physics, but over the years, the developers have continuously refined what they had. With the Crew Motorfest, the physics take one step forward, but also one step back. The cars feel a lot more grounded this time around, they are much heavier now and you can really feel the tires connecting to the road. Every bump, every sudden elevation change, every single thing that happens to your car can be felt through the controller. I don't know how much of it is thanks to the DualSense, but it's a noticeable improvement over the Crew 2 regardless. But, and of course there would be a but, the cars feel very weird when you drift. Whether we're talking about drift events or an accidental loss of grip, it doesn't matter. It feels really weird either way. It almost feels like at some point they were planning on switching over to a drift style handling, kinda like Need for Speed has been this past few years, but gave up halfway. And the way the camera moves in chase cam when you're fishtailing makes it even worse. I found that switching to HUD cam makes it a lot better, but your mileage may vary here if you're not a fan of this type of camera angle. Now, one thing I highly recommend anyone do the moment you start the game is head into the controller options and change the dead zones for the steering, throttle, and brakes. By default, it's set to 20, which is way too high and makes the game feel pretty laggy. I dropped mine down to 0 and that did help a lot, but the cars still take a fraction to respond to your inputs regardless. And if you have some stick drift issues, you may want to bump it up a few values just to be safe. Boats handle pretty much the same as before, but now it feels a little bit easier to keep the trim when you're cornering. Trim, for those who don't know, is when you hold down the analog stick to raise the front portion of the boat to make it go faster. Planes, on the other hand, feel like complete garbage now. There's a new assist that's supposed to help, but turning it on doesn't make much of a difference. It feels loose in a really bad way. It's kinda weird to explain, but it almost feels like you're flying a paper plane and I don't know, it feels kinda weightless to me and the way the plane moves doesn't feel good at all. And the thing is, they had a good handling model for planes on the Crew too, so I don't know what prompted the change, but I hope they change it back to how it used to be. The soundtrack is fine, the music choice fits the atmosphere this game is going for, but over time some of the songs start to blend in, which may be grating for some depending on your tolerance for a specific type of music. In this beta, we play on a small island that gets populated with events and activities as you go. I don't know if what we have on the closed beta represents the entire map or just a portion, but there is plenty of ground to cover judging by what I played so far. The fact that this game has boats and planes leaves the doors open to future expansions where they add new islands you can visit seamlessly. Overall, if I were to describe what the Crew Motorfest is going for, I'd say Forza Horizon 3. In many ways, the Crew Motorfest feels more Forza Horizon than the last two Forza Horizon games. Whether that's a good thing to you, that depends on your personal preference. To me, it's great that the Crew Motorfest is going for that summer vibe that the latest Forza Horizon games have been missing. There's a ton to do and see in these first few hours with the game, but I need to see more to be able to tell whether I like it or not. The Crew Motorfest comes out in just a couple months, so let's wait and see what it has in store. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in my next video.